She shamed the delivery man. Looked at him standing in the rain at her door, soaked, cold, holding her order carefully so nothing spilled, and she shamed him. Not because he was late. He was not late. Not because the food was wrong. The food was correct. She shamed him because he was holding a small sign that said he was mute, because he could not speak back to her, because she looked at a man doing an honest job in the rain and decided, based on absolutely nothing, that he was beneath her. She grabbed the bag. She dropped it on the floor deliberately. She said the things that people say when they want to make sure another person knows their place. Then she slammed the door. Then she called his manager to have him fired. And the delivery man walked away in the rain. He did not look sad. He looked determined. Now here is what you do not know yet. That delivery man was not who she thought he was. Not even close. He did not drive deliveries because he had to. He drove deliveries because he was one of the most disciplined, quietly brilliant people in that city. A man who had turned a childhood of silence and struggle into a personal fortune that most people in that building could not have dreamed of. A man who did delivery work because he wanted to stay grounded, because he wanted to understand the world from every position in it, not just the one at the top. And 3 months after she slammed that door, he bought her family's business. Not by accident, not as revenge planned in that moment. But when the opportunity arrived, and with the skills and the capital he had been building for 15 years, he was exactly the person to take it. What happened in that boardroom, what he did when he saw her sitting across the table, what he wrote on the notepad, what he decided to do instead of what she deserved. That is this story. But before you understand any of that, you need to understand who Leo was. You need to go back to a small town in Ohio, to a boy who was born without the ability to speak and who decided, very early in his life, that the world was not going to make that decision for him. You need to understand what 15 years of silent, focused building looks like when nobody is watching. Because this is not just a story about karma. This is a story about what a person becomes when the world tries to make them small, and they refuse. Stay here, this one goes deep. Before we go, like this video right now, one tap. If you believe that what you do to the vulnerable always comes back to find you. Subscribe to Fair Folktales and ring the bell. We are here every week with stories like this one. Comment below if you were Leo. What would you have done in that boardroom? Tell us exactly. We read every single comment. Now let us go back to where this all started. To a small town, a boy who could not speak, and a notebook that became his entire world. His name was Leo Chen. He was born in 1990 in a small town called Milford, about 40 miles outside Columbus, Ohio. Population 12,000. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone's name and the high school football team was the main event, and people stayed their whole lives because leaving required something extra that not everyone had. Leo had that something extra, but he was going to need a few years to find it. He was born with a condition called selective mutism at its most complete form, a neurological difference that meant his speech centers did not develop in the typical way. Not deafness. He could hear everything. He understood language perfectly. He could read, write, and think with complete clarity. He simply could not produce speech, not a single word, not even a sound that carried meaning. His mother, Dr. Mei Chen, was a pediatrician at the Milford County Hospital. She had known from his first year that his development was different. She had pursued every avenue: specialists in Columbus, specialists in Cincinnati, a researcher in Chicago who had published papers on her son's specific condition. She had spent money she did not easily have, taken days off she could not easily afford, driven roads she knew by their every pothole. The conclusion, delivered by the Chicago specialist when Leo was 4 years old, was careful and honest. He would likely not develop speech in the typical way. There were approaches that might produce some functional sounds over time, but no guarantees. His cognitive development was completely normal, possibly above average. His hearing was excellent. His understanding of language was sophisticated for his age. He is not limited in his thinking, the specialist said. He is limited in one channel of expression. Dr. Mei Chen had driven home from Chicago in silence. She had sat in the car outside their house for 20 minutes. Then she had gone inside, picked up her 4-year-old son, held him, and said into his hair, "We are going to figure this out together." She was a practical woman who believed in specific solutions. She began immediately. Leo had a speech therapist 3 times a week from age 4. Not to make him speak, that goal had been released. To give him every other tool available. Sign language, which he absorbed with the speed of someone whose brain had been routing all communication energy toward nonverbal channels. Facial expression, body language, and most importantly, writing. He could write before most children his age could read. Not slowly, fast, with the specific urgency of a child who has understood that this, the pen, the paper, the visible word, is the voice that is available to him. His first full sentence, written on a large piece of paper at age 4.5 and handed to his mother, said, "I am going to be rich." Dr. Mei Chen had read it and looked at her son. He was looking back at her with complete seriousness. She said, "Yes, you probably are." She pinned it to the kitchen wall. It was there for 15 years. School was complicated for Leo. Not academically. Academically, he was the student that teachers either found deeply satisfying to teach or found deeply unsettling, depending on the teacher. He was the child who finished every assignment first and then filled the extra time by reading whatever was available. He had opinions. He could not state them verbally, but he had a way of writing notes on the margins of papers that his teachers sometimes found funnier than they expected and sometimes found more pointed than was comfortable. His 3rd-grade teacher, a good woman named Mrs. Patterson, had written in his end-of-year report, "Leo communicates with extraordinary precision in writing. He notices everything. I sometimes get the sense he understands what is happening in this classroom better than I do. I consider this a significant compliment to him and a mild challenge to me." Socially, it was harder. Not because Leo was withdrawn. He was not withdrawn. He was engaged, curious, present. But the specific cruelty that children can deploy toward difference is specific and real. And Milford's elementary school had children who found the mute boy an irresistible target for the particular kind of humiliation that involves making someone speak. Leo had 3 years of this. Not constant. Most of the school left him alone or were genuinely kind. But there were enough incidents that he understood, by the time he was 8, that the world contained people who were made uncomfortable by his silence and who responded to that discomfort by trying to make him feel small. He did 2 things with this understanding. 1, he became the most observant person in any room he entered. When you cannot speak, you listen completely. When you listen completely, you learn things that speakers miss. He learned to read people with the accuracy of someone who has been studying them as his primary survival skill since he was 4 years old. 2, he decided that the best response to people who wanted to make him feel small was to become large in the ways that could not be taken from him. At 8 years old, this translated to grades. He had perfect grades, not because he was performing for teachers, because knowledge was the resource he had decided to acquire. At 12, it translated to business. He had found a library book about investing, a simplified guide written for teenagers that his school librarian had ordered from a catalog, and that Leo had checked out twice before anyone else touched it. He read it 4 times. He took notes. He made charts on graph paper at his desk. He went to his mother one evening and showed her the charts. She looked at them. She was a doctor. She understood finances. She had managed her own practice's accounts for 10 years. She knew enough to understand what her 12-year-old had done. "You want to invest," she said. He wrote, "I want to start small. I have $200 saved." She looked at the charts. She looked at him. She wrote him a check to match his $200. $400, she said. "Use it well." He used it well. The $400 went into an index fund. This was not a sophisticated choice. It was the most appropriate choice for his age and his knowledge level, and he had been precise enough in his research to arrive at it correctly. He did not touch the investment for 3 years. He watched it. He tracked it. He learned from tracking it what compound growth actually looked like when you could see it in real numbers rather than theoretical examples. By 15, the 400 had become 640. Not dramatic, but real. More importantly, he understood now, not as a concept, as a lived experience, what money did when it was left to grow rather than spent. This understanding, absorbed at 15, was worth more than the $640. He got a job at 16 at the local grocery store. Not because the family needed the money. Dr. Mei Chen earned a solid living and managed it carefully. He got the job because working in a business that had customers and inventory and margins taught him things that no book could. He worked the register. He restocked shelves. He watched the store manager, a man named Greg, 45, who had been running the store for 12 years, make decisions. He watched which decisions Greg made quickly and which ones he thought about. He watched where money was spent and whether it came back as more money or less. He kept a notebook. Not one notebook. By the time he left the grocery store at 18, he had 4 notebooks full of observations about business, customers, what made people spend money and what made them walk away, where efficiencies were and where they were not. Greg had said to Dr. Mei Chen once, at a school event where they had ended up near each other, "Your son is the best employee I have ever had. He does not talk, but he never misses anything. I would hire him back any time." Dr. Mei Chen had told Leo. He had written in his notebook, "Observation is more valuable than commentary." He had underlined it 3 times. He chose Ohio State University because it was in Columbus, and because the business school had a professor named Dr. Jonathan Park, who had published 3 papers on technology investment strategy that Leo had read in his junior year of high school, and whose thinking he wanted access to. He arrived at Ohio State with 2 suitcases, a laptop, 4 business notebooks, and an investment portfolio that had grown, through careful, boring, consistent choices made over 5 years, to approximately $14,000. He met James on his first day. James Osei was his roommate. He was from Dayton. He was studying computer science. He was loud in the specific way that fills a room comfortably rather than uncomfortably, the loudness of someone who is genuinely happy and wants other people to share it. He looked at Leo's notebooks on the desk on the first day and said, "Are those all business notes?" Leo nodded. "How many?" James said. Leo held up 4 fingers. 4 notebooks of business notes, James said, "and you just got here." Leo wrote, "I've been working on this since I was 12. James looked at the note. Then he said, "Okay, you're going to be my business partner someday." Leo looked at him. He wrote, "Why?" "Because," James said, "I can build anything in code, but I have no idea how to make money from it. You clearly know how to make money. This is an obvious combination." Leo thought about this. He wrote, "Let's see." They became friends. James learned Leo's communication rhythms quickly. The way Leo held eye contact to indicate something specific, the shorthand they developed for common exchanges, the way Leo's written notes were more direct and funnier than most people's spoken sentences because he did not waste words. "You are the most efficient communicator I know," James said once, freshman year. "You never say anything that doesn't need to be said." Leo wrote, "I have no choice." "I know," James said, "but here is the thing, most people could choose to communicate that way and they don't. You have made a virtue out of a limitation. That is actually something." Leo had looked at this note for a long time after James went to class. He put it in his notebook, not as a quote from someone else, as a reference to Carrie. The investment in technology started in his sophomore year. Dr. Park's class, Business Strategy and Emerging Markets, was where Leo encountered the theoretical framework for something he had been intuiting since his grocery store notebook years. The concept was arbitrage across information gaps, the idea that the biggest returns come not from being smart about information everyone has, but from correctly analyzing information that most people have not yet understood. He wrote Dr. Park a long note after the third class. Dr. Park read it. He read it twice. After class, he said, "Leo, I want you to come to my office hours." At office hours, Dr. Park said, "You have articulated something in this note that I have been trying to articulate in a paper for 3 months. Can we talk about it?" They talked for 2 hours. Leo wrote. Dr. Park responded. Leo wrote more. At the end, Dr. Park said, "You should be writing for my research group." Leo joined the research group. Over the next 2 years, he was a contributor to 2 academic papers on technology investment patterns. He was not listed as a primary author. He was an undergraduate, but his notes and analysis were threaded through both papers in ways that Dr. Park acknowledged explicitly in the acknowledgments. He was also investing. While in the research group, he had access to preliminary analysis of technology sector trends that had not yet reached mainstream financial media. This was not insider trading. The information was academic and publicly available to anyone willing to read the papers. But most people did not read the papers. Most people waited for the mainstream media to translate the papers, by which point the smart money had already moved. Leo did not wait. He bought into 3 small technology companies in his junior year. Not large positions. He did not have large positions to take, but calculated ones, precisely sized relative to his portfolio and relative to his analysis of the risk. By the time he graduated, 2 of the 3 companies had been acquired. The third had quadrupled in value. His portfolio on graduation day was approximately $240,000. He was 22 years old. He had not told his mother. He told her at graduation dinner. She had put down her fork. She had looked at him. He had slid the portfolio summary across the table. She read it. She did not say anything for a moment. Then she said, "Your $400 became this." He wrote, plus some good decisions. She looked at him. She looked at the kitchen wall in her mind, the wall where the note had been pinned for 15 years. "I am going to be rich." He was not rich yet, but the direction was unmistakable. "I am proud of you," she said. He wrote, "I know, Mama, I know." The decade after graduation was the decade that built everything. He went to Columbus and found a small apartment and a job at a mid-size financial services firm. Not for the salary was decent but not exceptional. For access, for the network, for the position inside a financial institution where he could see how larger capital moved and where it was going. He stayed 2 years. He learned, he invested, he was quiet and present and noticed everything. In year 2, he identified a pattern in the real estate market that the firm's analysts had not flagged. A specific corridor on the east side of Columbus where infrastructure investment was being planned but had not yet been announced publicly. He wrote a memo, a careful, detailed, fully evidenced memo, and submitted it to his supervisor. His supervisor had not acted on it. Leo had acted on it himself. He took 40% of his portfolio and bought land in that corridor through a small LLC he had set up for exactly this purpose. 14 months later, the infrastructure announcement came. The land he had bought for approximately $90,000 was worth $380,000. He quit his job. James had been building his software company for 2 years by this point, a development firm in Columbus that built custom applications for mid-size businesses. It was cash flow positive, but not yet profitable in the way James needed it to be. Leo went to James. He wrote, "I want to invest." James looked at the amount Leo was proposing. "You have been holding this back for 2 years, James said. "All this time we were roommates, you never said anything about." Leo wrote, "I needed to be sure of the amount first." "You needed to be sure," James said. Leo wrote, "Yes." James was quiet. "You are the most patient person I know," he said. Leo wrote, "I have no choice." This was the same thing he had written in freshman year, the same note, James recognized it. He smiled. "Okay," James said. "Let us build something." James's company, Osai Tech, grew significantly once Leo's capital and investment strategy joined James's technical capability. Leo was not the CEO, that was James, who was brilliant at building teams and building culture and making clients trust them. Leo was the strategic investor and, increasingly, the financial brain. Within 3 years, Osai Tech had grown from a 12-person development shop to a 35-person firm with national clients. Within 5 years, it was acquired by a larger technology company for a sum that made both men's net worth move into the category of genuinely significant. Leo's share of that acquisition, approximately $4 million. He called his mother from the car outside the lawyer's office. She picked up. He typed into the text-to-speech app he had been using for calls since it had become reliable. "We completed the sale today, Mama." "The acquisition," she said. "Yes," the voice said for him. "4 million, she said. He typed, "Approximately." A silence. Then his mother said, "I am going to put dinner on the table. Come home this weekend." He came home. They sat at the kitchen table where he had shown her his first investment charts at 12 years old. The note was still on the wall. "I am going to be rich." He looked at it. She followed his gaze. "I am going to take it down," she said. "You can write a new one." He shook his head. He wrote on a paper, "Leave it, I'm not rich yet, I'm just beginning." She looked at the note. Then she looked at her son. "Yes," she said quietly, "I believe you. Subscribe. This is the kind of story we tell every single day." Her name was Clara Whitmore. She was born in the same year as Leo, 1990, but in a world so different from Milford, Ohio, that the distance was not just geographic. Her father, Robert Whitmore, had built the Golden Harvest from one bakery in downtown Columbus in 1985. He had started it when he was 28 years old with a recipe his grandmother had given him, a lease on a small commercial kitchen, and the stubborn belief that people would pay more for bread that was genuinely good than for bread that was merely available. He had been right. The first bakery had been profitable within 8 months. The second had opened 3 years later. By the time Clara was born in 1990, the Golden Harvest had 7 locations across Ohio, was known for the specific quality of its sourdough and its pastry, and had been written about in 2 food magazines that Robert kept framed in his office. By the time Clara was 10, there were 22 locations. By the time she finished high school, there were 41. Robert Whitmore was not a billionaire, but he was wealthy, genuinely, comfortably wealthy in the way of a person who built something real and managed it carefully over 30 years. He had a large house in the best part of Columbus. He had a second property, a lake house, that the family used in summers. He drove the right car. He took his family to Europe twice before Clara was 12. Clara grew up in the way a fish grows up in water, completely, without awareness of the specific quality of what was surrounding her. She was not a stupid person. She was smart, quick-thinking, socially perceptive, capable of charm when she wanted to use it. She had graduated from a good private school with grades that reflected intelligence applied inconsistently. The inconsistency was the problem. She had grown up being told, without the words ever being used, that certain things were for her and certain things were below her. Not cruelly. Her father, Robert, was not a cruel man. He was a man who loved his daughter and who expressed that love, in part, by making sure her life was comfortable, easy, and insulated from difficulty. The insulation was the problem. She had never struggled for anything. Not once. When something was hard, there was someone to manage the hard part. When something was uncomfortable, there was a way to move to comfort. The world had arranged itself around her in the specific way that the world arranges itself around people who have always had enough to make it do so. And she had drawn from this arrangement a conclusion that felt to her like wisdom, but was actually the opposite. She had concluded that comfort was the natural state of things, and that people who were not comfortable had failed at something. had done something wrong, were in their position for a reason that had to do with their own inadequacy rather than with circumstances. She had never been told this explicitly. It had seeped in. The way things that are never said explicitly are sometimes more powerful than things that are said clearly. She had graduated college. Her father had paid for a good school in New York. With a business degree she had not applied herself to, and a network she had not built because building requires effort. She had come back to Columbus and moved into a luxury apartment in the downtown core that her father paid for. She had a vague plan of working in the family business eventually, when she felt like it. She did not feel like it yet. She ordered in every meal. She spent her days shopping, lunching with friends, attending events. She was beautiful and socially confident and had an income from her father that required nothing of her. She was 28 years old. She was bored in a way she had not identified as boredom. And she had a habit, casual, unconsidered, of treating the people who served her as objects of service rather than human beings. Not always, not to everyone. There was a woman named Maria who cleaned her apartment twice a week and whom Clara really liked, in the way she liked people who were cheerful and undemanding and asked nothing from her. She was nice to Maria. But people who challenged her, even inadvertently, people who were late, people who got orders wrong, people who were different in ways that her eyes snagged on, these people encountered the specific sharpness that comfortable people develop when their comfort is interrupted. She did not think of herself as unkind. She thought of herself as someone who had standards. Her father, Robert, had noticed this quality in his daughter and was uncomfortable about it, but had not found a way to address it. He was a kind man who had made a mistake of the loving kind. He had given his daughter so much that she had no experience of what it felt like to not have it, and he did not know how to take that back. He worried about her. He worried about the specific quality that he could not name, but that he saw in her when she spoke about certain people. Service staff, delivery workers, people doing jobs that did not have a corner office at the end of them. He thought she would grow out of it. She had not grown out of it. On a rainy Tuesday in March, in the second year of the decade that would change everything for everyone in this story, a new delivery driver arrived at her door with a sign that said he was mute and hoped she enjoyed her meal. She did not grow out of it that day either. She made it worse. The delivery that afternoon was standard. She had ordered from the same service she always used, an upscale food delivery company that sourced from the best restaurants in Columbus and charged accordingly. The order was a specific salad and a coffee and 2 pastries. 12% tip had been added automatically. She never changed the automatic tip, but she had not chosen it consciously either. The driver that day was different from the usual one. Leo had started driving for the delivery service 3 weeks earlier. This was not a financial decision. He had, by this point in his life, completed the OSI Tech acquisition, invested the proceeds across 6 more technology positions and 4 real estate purchases in Columbus, and had a personal net worth that put him comfortably in the category he had been building toward since he was 4 years old at the kitchen table. He was driving deliveries for 2 reasons. One was something James had said to him the week the acquisition closed. James had said, "You are going to be one of the most successful people I know. I have known this since freshman year. But here is my concern. You are going to end up in a world where everyone you interact with knows who you are and treats you accordingly. And you are going to lose the thing that makes you good at this. You are going to lose contact with the actual ground." Leo had written, "What do you mean?" "I mean," James said, "that the best investors, the best business people, the best leaders, they stay connected to how ordinary life works. They do not lose the grocery store notebooks. They do not stop watching Greg make decisions." Leo had thought about this. James was right. He had started the delivery work 2 weeks after the acquisition closed. Not every day, 3 days a week, 2-hour shifts. He wore ordinary clothes. He drove his own car, which was a practical sedan rather than anything that announced his income. He carried the food, knocked on doors, presented his sign, and observed. What he was observing was customer service. Real customer service. The gap between how people treated someone who was there to help them and how they would behave if they knew who was actually at their door. In 3 weeks, he had been treated warmly by most people. A few had been indifferent. 2 had been rude. On a rainy Tuesday in March, he drove to a downtown luxury apartment building with a salad, a coffee, and 2 pastries. He was soaking wet. The elevator was slow. He arrived 2 minutes after the stated delivery window. He knocked. The door opened. Clara Whitmore looked at him. He held up the bag and the sign simultaneously. He had learned to do this in the first week, holding the sign and the bag at the same time, so people saw both and understood before he handed anything over. "I am mute, but I hope you enjoy your meal." He had written it himself. He had also added the exclamation point deliberately, because James had told him once that he was sometimes too serious, and the exclamation point was a small experiment in lightness. Clara looked at the sign. She looked at him, dripping water on her doormat, rain-soaked, standing with careful balance to keep the bag steady. She said, "You're late." He was not late. He had checked the timestamp. He was within the window, but he said nothing because he could not. He held out the bag. She took it not from him, but from the air between them, a snatching motion that he recognized as a specific kind of statement. And then, without breaking eye contact, she opened her hand and let the bag drop. He watched it hit the floor. The salad container opened. She said, "Look at the mess. You're useless. You can't even speak, so why are you doing this job? Go back to the shadows where you belong." She went inside and closed the door. Leo stood in the hallway. He looked at the spilled salad on her doormat. He picked up the bag. He put what he could back inside. He left it leaning against her door because it was her food, and she had paid for it. He walked to the elevator. He pressed the button. He stood very still. The security camera in the hallway, which he had noted on his first delivery to this building, was pointed at the door. He had seen the footage would have captured everything. He thought about this for a moment. The elevator came. He wrote it down. In the lobby, he took out his phone. He found the delivery company's management app. He found the report function. He did not file a complaint about Clara. He filed a note on his own delivery account, marked as private, observed complete failure of customer understanding, noted for future reference. He drove home. He called James on the text-to-speech app. "How was the shift?" James said. Leo typed, "Instructive." "Good instructive or bad instructive?" James said. Leo typed, "Both." "Tell me," James said. Leo told him, the bag, the sign, the words she had said. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That is the specific cruelty of people who have never been at the bottom." Leo typed, "Yes." "Are you okay?" James said. Leo typed, "I have been practicing being okay since I was 4 years old. Yes, I am okay." James was quiet. "I know," he said. "I know you are." They talked for a while about other things, about a tech company Leo was tracking, about James's new project. Before they hung up, James said, "Leo, that woman is going to encounter her own mirror at some point. Life does that." Leo typed, "I know." He put his phone down. He opened his business notebook to a fresh page. He wrote one sentence, "Always know what is real, regardless of what anyone else sees." He underlined it. He did not write Clara's name anywhere. But he filed away the address. Not for a plan, he did not have a plan yet, just because Leo Chen filed away everything. It was how he was built. Clara called his manager that evening. The manager was apologetic, because the manager was always apologetic with customers who paid at the premium tier. Leo was suspended from the building's delivery route. He noted this. He also noted, in his next shift, that the suspension was building-specific. He could still deliver elsewhere, and that the building was in a neighborhood where the real estate numbers he had been watching for 8 months were approaching a specific threshold. He noted this too. He kept driving. He had not been looking for the golden harvest. The golden harvest had been in the Columbus business landscape for his entire adult life. A presence, a name, the bakery on the corner that made the good sourdough. Not something he had analyzed specifically. But 3 months after the rainy Tuesday, 3 things happened that put the bakery chain in his field of view. The first was a conversation with a commercial real estate broker he knew named Patricia Marsh. Patricia worked the central Columbus market and knew which buildings were healthy and which were not from the inside out. She had mentioned, in passing, during a coffee meeting about a different property. Have you looked at any of the Golden Harvest locations? 3 of them are behind on commercial lease payments. I know the landlords on 2 of them. Not dramatically behind, but consistently behind. Pattern going on about 18 months. Leo had written, what kind of number? Mid-level for each location, she said. The problem is when it's 3 locations at once. Suggests a cash flow issue at the parent level rather than location-specific performance. Leo had noted this. He went back to his office and pulled everything publicly available on the Golden Harvest. Corporate filings, property records, news coverage, financial media mentions. He spent 2 evenings on this. The picture that emerged was specific. Robert Whitmore had made 2 significant decisions in the past 3 years that had not gone well. First, he had expanded rapidly, taking the chain from 41 locations to 58 in 18 months. The expansion was funded largely by debt. The new locations had not performed at the projected level, partly because the market had shifted and partly because at 58 locations, the Golden Harvest's quality control was not what it had been at 40. Second, he had invested a portion of the company's capital reserve in a commercial real estate fund that had significantly underperformed. The combination had created a liquidity problem. Not a crisis, not yet, but the kind of sustained pressure that, if unresolved over the following 12 months, would become a crisis. Leo knew this pattern. He had studied this pattern. He had 3 notebook entries specifically about this pattern from his research group work with Dr. Park. The family business that expands too fast, borrows to do it, cannot maintain quality, and creates a debt load that the original business cannot service. The resolution to this pattern, when it came, usually came through one of 3 doors. A refinancing that required significant concessions to lenders, a strategic investor who took a meaningful equity stake, or an acquisition. He spent the following 6 weeks doing a thorough analysis of the Golden Harvest situation. What he found confirmed the broad picture and added specifics. The core business, the original locations, the 20 that had been operating for 15 or more years, was genuinely good. The product was what it had always been. The customer loyalty in those locations was strong. The problem was the expansion and the debt. He wrote a full investment memo. He shared it with James. James read it. James said, "You are not going to do this because of the rainy Tuesday." Leo wrote, "This is a sound investment opportunity that has nothing to do with the rainy Tuesday." "I know it is sound," James said. "I can read the numbers. I am asking you to be honest with yourself about the full picture." Leo was quiet. Then he wrote, "The numbers are the reason I am doing this. What happened on the rainy Tuesday is the reason I am paying attention to it instead of 100 other opportunities that are equally sound." James looked at this. "That is honest," he said. "Yes," James said, "and I trust you know the difference, but I want you to know what you are actually holding here." Leo wrote, "I know exactly what I am holding." James nodded. "Okay," he said, "then let us talk about the structure." The acquisition was structured over 3 months. Leo worked through 2 intermediaries, a financial advisor named Kevin Walsh and a corporate attorney named Grace Park, who had handled similar transactions and who was meticulous about the legal architecture. The approach was not aggressive. He did not swoop in with a hostile offer. He began by purchasing a portion of the bakery chain's outstanding commercial debt from the lenders who held it. This was a legitimate financial maneuver, Lenders sometimes sold distressed debt at a discount to a secondary buyer rather than managing the default process themselves. The two lenders holding the most significant portions of the Golden Harvest's debt were approached through Kevin Walsh. Both agreed. Leo now held approximately 40% of the company's debt load. He also, through a small LLC named CL Holdings, purchased additional debt instruments that gave him practical leverage over the company's near-term refinancing options. He was not advertising who CL Holdings was. Kevin Walsh handled all communications. Robert Whitmore received a letter from Kevin Walsh's firm in month 2, indicating that the majority of his company's debt had been consolidated under a new holder, that the holder was interested in a structured resolution, and that a meeting was requested. Robert Whitmore called his own attorneys. His attorneys reviewed the situation and told him the truth. The new debt holder had sufficient control over the company's financial obligations that their options for independent resolution were limited. Robert came home that evening looking pale. He told Clara what was happening. Clara was furious in the specific way of someone who has been told that the ground beneath them is different from what they thought it was. "We will fight it," she said. "It is not illegal," her father said. His voice was tired. "It is legitimate. Someone has been buying our debt. They own enough of it now that we need to deal with them." "Who is it?" she said. "The LLC is called CL Holdings," he said. "I don't know who is behind it." "Find out," she said. He was already trying to find out. He found out approximately 3 days before the scheduled meeting. His attorney, who had a connection at the financial advisory firm, learned that CL Holdings was operated by a man named Leo Chen, who was known in Columbus's business circles as a quiet, meticulous investor who had made a substantial amount of money in technology and real estate over the past decade. Robert Whitmore had no personal history with Leo Chen. He brought the name home to Clara. Clara stared at her father. "Leo Chen," she said slowly. The name moved through her memory the way a specific kind of recognition moves. Not the recognition of someone you know well, but the recognition of someone you have encountered and not thought of since. She could not place it. She would not place it until the boardroom. If this story is holding you, good. Subscribe. The next part is what you have been building toward. The meeting was on a Thursday morning. Clara spent the night before preparing. Not in the way that Leo prepared, not with research and analysis and the careful identification of the exact dynamic at play. She prepared in the way she prepared for everything, by building a version of the situation in her head where she was already right, and deciding on the basis of that version what she was going to say. She told her father she was coming. He said he was not sure that was wise. She said she knew how to handle people like this. He did not argue. He was too tired and too worried to argue, and a part of him was holding onto the hope that Clara would walk into that room and do something that he himself could not. They arrived at the address that Kevin Walsh had specified, a mid-size conference facility in downtown Columbus, neutral ground. Clara walked in with the posture of someone who had decided in advance that the person they were about to meet was an irritant rather than a significant force. She was wearing a good suit. She had prepared statements about the Golden Harvest's value, its history, its community presence. She had a number in her head, a number she was prepared to offer this Leo Chen person for his debt holdings, a number that was higher than she wanted to pay but lower than she suspected he expected. She pushed open the door of the conference room. She walked in. She stopped. The room was standard conference room, a long table, chairs on both sides, a view of Columbus through the window. 2 people were on the far side, Kevin Walsh, whom she recognized from her father's description, and a corporate attorney she did not know. At the head of the table, in a dark suit that was not performing wealth, but was clearly expensive in the way of quality rather than statement, sat a man. She looked at him. The specific recognition moved through her in pieces. The face, the posture, The way his hands were placed on the table, still, attentive, taking in the room with the quiet completeness of someone for whom this mode was entirely natural. She knew those hands. She had last seen those hands wet from the rain, holding a bag and a sign outside her apartment door. She said, "You." Not loudly, almost quietly, the word of someone who has been hit by something they did not see coming. Leo looked at her. He said nothing. He had not said anything in 34 years that was not written. He said nothing now. Her father walked in behind her and looked across the table and looked at the man in the expensive suit and tried to place him and could not. "You," Clara said again, and now her voice had more in it, the specific mix of recognition and disbelief and something else, something she was not fully identifying yet. "The delivery man." Her father looked at her. Leo reached forward and picked up a notepad that was beside the water glass at his seat. He wrote. He slid the notepad across the table. Clara looked at it. It said, "Please sit down." She sat down. Her father sat beside her. Robert Whitmore looked at the notepad. He looked at the man at the head of the table. He understood now that his daughter knew this person from before, and that the nature of that knowing was something he was going to hear about. Kevin Walsh spoke first. He handled the formal introduction, his name, his role, the nature of CL Holdings' position relative to the Golden Harvest's debt, the legal architecture. Robert Whitmore listened with the concentrated attention of a man who is taking in information that is going to require decisions. Clara was not listening to Kevin Walsh. She was looking at Leo. Leo was looking at her, and his expression had the quality she had noticed on the rainy Tuesday, that complete, undiverted attention. The attention of someone who is not managing what they are seeing, but receiving it fully. When Kevin Walsh finished the formal portion, Leo picked up the notepad again. He wrote for 30 seconds. He slid it across the table to Robert Whitmore first. Robert read it. His expression changed as he read. Clara looked at her father's face. "What does it say?" she said. Her father passed her the notepad. It said, "Mr. Whitmore, the core of what you built over 30 years is genuinely good. The sourdough in your original Columbus location is the best I have found in this city, and I have been buying it since I was a student. The problem is the expansion, not the business. I'm not here to dismantle what you built. I am here because I believe the right management of your debt and a strategic restructuring of the expansion locations can stabilize the original business and make it significantly stronger. I want to discuss that with you today." Clara read this. She looked up at Leo. She said, "Why are you being generous?" He wrote again. The notepad came back. It said, "I am not being generous. I am being accurate. The business is worth helping. Those are different things." She looked at this. Then she said, 3 months ago you were delivering food to my door." Leo wrote. The notepad said, "I was studying customer service. I do that by entering every level of the service experience directly. I have been doing it since I was 16 years old in a grocery store in Milford, Ohio." She stared at the notepad. "You were not doing it because you had to," she said. He wrote, "No. You chose to be a delivery driver," she said. "Yes." "While you were," she stopped. She looked at Kevin Walsh. "His net worth," she said. Kevin Walsh gave her a number. She sat back. The number was specific and large. She looked at Leo. Leo picked up the notepad again. He wrote for longer this time. He slid it across. She read it. It said, "You stood at your door in a dry apartment and dropped my bag on the floor. You told me I was useless. You told me to go back to the shadows. You said I had no right to the job because I cannot speak. Then you called my manager and had me removed from your building's route." A pause in the writing, visible in the slight change of pressure on the pen. "I was born without the ability to speak. I have lived my entire life being evaluated by people who made the mistake you made, deciding that silence means absence, deciding that a limitation in one area means limitation in all areas. I have built everything I have by being the most observant person in every room I enter, because observation is what is available to me instead of the commentary most people use to fill the space. She was reading very carefully now. You judged me by my silence. Everything I have, I built in that silence. The last line of the note said, "Now, shall we talk about your father's business?" Clara put the notepad down. She was quiet for a long moment. Her father was watching her. Kevin Walsh was watching her. Leo was watching her with the same attention he had been watching her with since she walked in. She said, "I owe you an apology." Leo wrote, "Yes." She said, "I am sorry." She said it simply, not performed, not managed. It was the first genuinely simple thing she had said in the room, possibly the first genuinely simple thing she had said in a long time. Leo looked at her. He wrote one word. He slid the notepad across. It said, "Noted." He turned to Robert Whitmore. He picked up the formal portfolio that Kevin Walsh had prepared, and he placed it on the table and began to walk Robert through the proposed restructuring. The restructuring took 6 months. Leo did not take full ownership of the golden harvest. This surprised people who had been watching from the outside. When the story of the acquisition became known in Columbus business circles, most people had assumed he would take control and either turn it into something else or run it himself. He did neither. He held 60% of the equity. Robert Whitmore retained 40% and his position as the chief creative officer, the person who oversaw the product, the recipes, the quality standards that had made the original locations what they were. The expansion locations were assessed individually. 23 of the newer locations that were underperforming were closed or converted. The leases either ended, or, in 4 cases, the locations were sold to independent operators who wanted to run small bakeries and could do so profitably without the overhead of the chain structure. The remaining locations, the solid core of the business, the ones with the track record and the real customer base, were maintained and reinvested in. The debt was restructured under a management arrangement that gave the business breathing room while building toward profitability. Within 18 months, the golden harvest was making money again. Within 3 years, it was making more money than it had at its peak. Robert Whitmore came to Leo's office on the day the 3-year financial review was presented. He sat down. He said, "You did not have to do it this way." Leo wrote, "Which way?" "Keeping me involved," Robert said. "Keeping the name, the original locations. You could have bought this, stripped the brand, and built something different under a new name." Leo wrote, "That would have been wasteful. What you built in those original locations is genuine. You lose that if you discard what it came from." Robert was quiet. "Why did you do it?" he said. Leo thought for a moment. He wrote, "Because I have been watching how businesses are built and destroyed my whole life. The ones worth saving are the ones with something real at the center. You have something real at the center. You just needed someone to cut away the parts that were covering it up." Robert looked at this. He looked at Leo. "I know about the rainy Tuesday," he said. Leo wrote, "I thought you might." "Clara told me," Robert said. "2 weeks after the boardroom, she told me everything. The bag, what she said." He paused. "I was not surprised. That is the worst part. I was not surprised." Leo wrote, "She was raised to be comfortable. Comfort without contrast produces a specific kind of blindness." "I gave her too much and protected her from too much," Robert said. "I know that." Leo wrote, "She is correcting it. Give her time." Robert looked at him. "How do you know she is correcting it?" he said. Leo wrote, "Because I watch people. She is correcting it." Clara had not been given a delivery driver job. This was the part of the story that circulated in the version that people told each other, the karmic ending, the daughter becoming the driver. It made a clean story. What actually happened was more real and more complicated. Leo had offered Clara a position in the company, not as punishment, as what he had said in the boardroom, as something genuine. He had offered her a role in the customer experience division. not managing it, learning it. The specific brief was this. She would spend 3 months working at the ground level of 3 different customer-facing roles in the Golden Harvest locations. Not as an observer, as an employee, serving customers, taking orders, working the counter, learning what it felt like to be on the other side of the transaction she had been on the comfortable side of her entire life. He had explained this in a written note that he had sent to her separately, a week after the boardroom. The note had said, "This is not a punishment. I'm not interested in punishing you. What happened at your door told me something specific about what you had not learned. I am offering you a chance to learn it. The position after the 3 months is a real one, a management role in customer experience that I think you would be good at if you understood the full picture. But you cannot manage what you have not done. Up to you." She had looked at this note for a long time. She had called her father. He had said, "You know what I think." She had said, "I know what you think." She had said yes. The 3 months were not easy. The first week was the hardest. She worked the morning counter shift at one of the original Columbus locations, starting at 5:30 in the morning. She had never been awake at 5:30 for any purpose that did not involve coming home from somewhere rather than going to something. She made coffee. She handled the register. She took orders, handed bags, dealt with the full range of human behavior that a busy bakery counter produces, the rushed professionals, the indecisive browsers, the regulars who wanted their usual without saying what the usual was, the customers who were unhappy about something that had nothing to do with the coffee. She was not graceful at it. The store manager, a woman named Paulette who had been with the Golden Harvest for 11 years and who knew exactly who Clara was and what she was doing there, watched her with the specific patience of someone who had seen many kinds of difficult people and was not impressed or intimidated by any of them. On day 3, Clara made an error with a customer's order. The customer was impatient and expressed this. Clara's instinct was the old one, the sharpness, the dismissal. She felt it start and she stopped it in the middle, which was harder than not starting it. She said, "I am sorry, let me fix that." Paulette, who had watched this from 3 meters away, said nothing. Later, at the end of the shift, she said to Clara, "That was good." Clara looked at her. "What was good?" she said. "What you stopped yourself from saying," Paulette said. "Most people don't stop it. They let it out and then regret it." Clara was quiet. "How did you know what I stopped myself from saying?" she said. "I have been watching people on this side of the counter for 11 years, Paulette said. "I know every face." Clara looked at her. "You are good at this," Clara said. "Yes," Paulette said simply, "I am." Clara went home that evening and sat in her apartment and thought about Paulette. She thought about Leo's written words. She thought about standing at a door with a bag on her floor and a man in the rain looking at what she had done. She picked up her phone. She found Leo's contact. He had given it to her as a business card exchange, his personal number plus a text-to-speech app he used. She typed a text. It said, "I understand something now that I did not understand before. I am not sure I can explain it yet. I just wanted you to know." She sent it. She sat with her phone. 30 seconds later, his reply came through. It said, "I know. Paulette told me you had a good moment today." She looked at the screen. She typed, "You have people watching me." His reply, "I have people working alongside you. There is a difference. Good night, Clara." She put her phone down. She was smiling. She noticed she was smiling. She was not sure what to do with that. James was the one who noticed it first. James always noticed things first, not in Leo's methodical way, but in the instinctive social way of someone who has been reading rooms through the filter of genuine warmth since he was old enough to read rooms. He was having lunch with Leo 2 months into Clara's internship period. He said, "Tell me about the Golden Harvest." Leo wrote, and the text-to-speech spoke. "Restructuring is going well. Original locations up 12%. "That is not what I am asking," James said. Leo looked at him. "Tell me about Clara," James said. Leo was quiet. He wrote something on his notepad, not the text-to-speech, which he used for conversations where he needed the voice. The notepad, which was for things he wanted to say directly. He slid it across the table. It said, "She is changing." "Tell me more," James said. Leo wrote, "She stopped herself from being unkind to a customer on day 3. Paulette told me. She has been stopping herself regularly since then. The impulse is still there, but she is catching it before it arrives. That is not nothing. That is a person in process." James looked at this. He looked at Leo. "You respect her," he said. Leo wrote, "I respect people who correct." "No," James said. "I know what you look like when you respect someone in the abstract. I am asking about something specific." Leo was quiet for a moment. He wrote, "She is interesting. She is smarter than she has been using herself. When she understands something genuinely, she understands it all the way through, not partially. That is rare." James read this. He looked at the ceiling briefly. He said, "I want to have you both to dinner on Saturday." Leo wrote, "That is obvious." "That obvious?" James said. "Yes." "Are you going to come anyway?" James said. Leo wrote, "Yes." The dinner was at James's house. His wife, Amara, had been briefed. She and James had been married for 3 years. She was a doctor. She was the most direct person in the room other than Leo, and she had the specific quality of someone who formed her opinions quickly and accurately. Clara arrived first. She had not known Leo would be there. James had listed it as a dinner for some of the people involved in the Golden Harvest project. She walked in and saw Leo standing at the bookshelf across the room, holding a book and reading the back cover. She said, "Oh." He looked up. He waited. She said, "Hello." He raised one hand in the greeting he used, the specific wave that was half greeting and half acknowledgement. James appeared from the kitchen and said, "You both know each other. Drinks." The dinner was excellent because Amara was a good cook, and because James was incapable of hosting a bad evening. The conversation moved between the business and other things and back. Clara contributed to both halves. She had opinions about the bakery's expansion strategy that were pointed and correct. She had opinions about other things too, which she expressed with the specific combination of directness and openness that she had been developing. Leo contributed through the text-to-speech on his phone, which was set to a natural voice that he had calibrated over years to sound more like speech than most synthesized voices. After dinner, James and Amara mysteriously needed to check on something in the kitchen for a fairly long time. Clara and Leo sat in the living room. She said, "James is not subtle." Leo typed, "No." She said, "Is he right to not be subtle?" Leo typed, "What do you mean?" She looked at him. "I mean," she said carefully, "is there something here that is worth not being subtle about?" Leo looked at her. He typed. The voice said, "I have been watching you for 3 months, not monitoring, watching, in the way I watch things when I am interested in them." She said, "What have you seen?" He typed for a moment. The voice said, "Someone becoming who they could have been if they had learned what they needed to learn earlier, which is not a criticism. It is just accurate." She said, "That is a very specific compliment." "Yes," the voice said. She was quiet for a moment. "I was terrible to you on that rainy Tuesday," she said. "Yes," the voice said. "I have been terrible to a lot of people," she said. "I am understanding this in a way I did not before." "I know," the voice said. She looked at him. "How are you this patient?" she said. He typed for a moment. The voice said, "I had to become patient before I was 5 years old. The choice was patience or defeat. I chose patience." She looked at him. She said, "I would like to know you better, if that is something you would also like." Leo looked at her. He typed one word. The voice said, "Yes." They moved slowly. This was both of their natures, his from the beginning, hers by new design. She had learned, in the 3 months on the counter, And in the 4 months after that, in the customer experience management role that the internship had led to, that the things worth having required patience. She was relearning patience as a skill she had never been given the chance to develop. He had been patient his entire life. Together, they were the slowest-moving romantic story that James and Amara had ever watched. James, who was incapable of patience about things he found exciting, complained about this regularly. "You are the most deliberate people I have ever seen," he told Leo once. Leo typed, "You are the most impatient person I have ever seen." "That is true," James said, "but this is going to take years at your pace." Leo typed, "Good things are built in years." James looked at this. "I cannot argue with that," he said. "It took a year and a half. Not because they were uncertain. They were not uncertain. Because they were both, in different ways, learning to trust the thing between them rather than performing it." She came to understand his specific mode of communication, not as a limitation, but as a distinct quality. The way he paid full attention when she spoke, because he had been paying full attention to every conversation his entire life. The way his written notes were precise and sometimes unexpectedly funny. The way he remembered things she had said months ago and referenced them accurately. He came to understand that the person who had stood in the apartment doorway and dropped a bag was not the person across the table from him. Not because the events were the same person and she had changed. It was more specific than that. He understood that the person on the doorway had been a person who had been trained into that behavior and was now. One counter shift, and one stopped impulse and one dinner at a time, training herself out of it. He respected that. Not charitably, actually. He proposed on a Thursday evening. At the same bench in the park near her building where, if you calculated the angle, you could see the entrance she had pushed him away from 18 months before. He had chosen this deliberately. She had laughed when she understood why he had chosen it. He had written, full circle. She had said, "You are a very specific person." He had written, yes. She had said yes too. They were married the following spring. Small ceremony. Both families. James as best man. He had prepared a speech that he had written himself and revised 4 times, and that managed to be both genuinely funny and genuinely moving, which was James at his best. Robert Whitmore had sat in the front row, and at one point during the vows, had put his face in his hands briefly. His wife, who had passed away 3 years before all of this, Clara's mother, who had been gentle and good, and who Clara had missed in the way you miss a soft voice, she would have said something specific about this moment. Clara had thought about what it would have been. She thought her mother would have said, "This is exactly right." She thought, "I know, Mama, I know." Clara's role in the Golden Harvest grew. Over the following years, she built the customer experience division into something the bakery chain had never had before, a genuine connection between the brand and the people it served. She was good at it in the specific way that she was good at everything once she had understood it from the ground up. She hired Paulette as her deputy. Paulette had said when Clara offered the role, "You know I watched you on day 3. You know I told Leo." "I know," Clara said. "You're not angry," Paulette said. "Why would I be angry?" Clara said. "You did what I should have been doing years earlier. You paid attention to people." Paulette looked at her. "You learned fast," she said. "I had a good teacher," Clara said. "Several." She hired people at every level the same way she had been hired, not for what they presented on the surface, but for what they were underneath it. She was good at seeing underneath. She had learned to be good at it. The customer satisfaction scores for the Golden Harvest locations under her division were, within 2 years, the highest in the company's history. Robert Whitmore, reviewing the data at a quarterly meeting, said, "I always hoped you would find the right direction. I did not know it would come from this particular path." Clara said, "The path was exactly right for it." Robert looked at his daughter. He thought about the expansion that had almost broken everything. He thought about the debt. He thought about the rainy Tuesday and a delivery man in a wet corduroy jacket. He thought about the very specific way that the worst thing that had happened to his company had also been the best. "Yes," he said, "I suppose it was." Leo still drove deliveries sometimes. Not 3 days a week anymore. His schedule was different. His responsibilities were different. And James would have said something lengthy and pointed about it if he had tried to maintain the old routine. But occasionally, once a month or so, he would sign up for a shift under a different name, pick up orders, drive routes, knock on doors. He did it because the notebooks required it. The notebooks were full now. He had shelves of them, going back to age 12, the grocery store observations and the investment analysis and the real estate corridors and the acquisition memos. He added to them regularly. Clara had read some of them. Not all they were his private thinking, his specific language, and he shared them with her the way you share something sacred. Carefully, over time, when you trust the other person with your actual interior. She had read the one from the rainy Tuesday. She had read the sentence he had written when he got home. Always know what is real, regardless of what anyone else sees. She had held the notebook for a long time. She had written beside his sentence. She had asked him first if she could, a single line. It said, "I see you now." He had read it. He had looked at her. He had written on the next line, "I know." So, that is Leo. That is what silence builds when the person inside it decides to build rather than diminish. But I want to stay with you for a moment before we end. Because this story is going to be heard by some people as a story about karma, about what you get when you are cruel to someone, about the universe arranging consequences for bad behavior. And yes, some of that is in here. But that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is what Leo had decided at 4 years old at a kitchen table. He had decided that the limitation he was born with was not going to determine the shape of his life. Not through denial, he did not pretend he could speak. He could not, he never would. He carried his notebook everywhere. He used the text-to-speech app. He had been signing since he was 4. He communicated, just not in the way that most people expected. And because he could not communicate in that expected way, he had developed every other way with a completeness that most people never achieve. The observation, the listening, the patience, the specific quality of his attention, the attention of someone who has never been able to coast on the reassuring noise of his own voice and has had to be actually, completely present instead. He built a fortune in that silence. He built relationships in that silence. He built a business analysis methodology in that silence that was more accurate than anything that had ever come from a boardroom filled with the loudest voices. The person who stood at Clara's door was not a delivery man. He was the most complete listener that city had ever produced. And Clara had looked at him and decided she could see everything she needed to know. She could not. She could not see anything because she had not learned to look. There is something important in the ending of this story. Leo did not humiliate her in that boardroom. He could have. He had the leverage. He had the legal standing. He had the moral standing. He had the specific, clean justification of a person who was wronged and is now in a position of power over the person who wronged them. He used it to offer her a job. Not as a statement of power, as a genuine assessment. He had seen, even through the worst of what she had done, the quality underneath it. The intelligence that had been applied to nothing, the social perceptiveness that had been used for the wrong purposes, the person who could, if she understood what she was missing, become something real. He gave her the chance to become something real. That is not generosity, that is accuracy. That distinction matters. Generosity gives without basis. Accuracy sees what is there and responds to it. Leo saw what was there. He had been seeing what was there his entire life. It was the only vision he had ever known. And Clara, I want to say something about Clara that is not simple. She was not a good person on that rainy Tuesday. The words she used were the words of someone who had decided that a person was beneath consideration, and she said them with the ease of someone for whom that decision felt natural. But she corrected. On day 3 of the counter shift, she felt the old impulse and stopped it. One moment, one stopped word. That is not a transformation. That is the beginning of one. What followed was 18 months of stopped words and looked-at faces and realizations arriving one at a time, not in a flood, in increments. The specific pace of someone learning that the world they had been living in was a smaller world than the real one. She came into the real world one shift at a time. She is still in it. She will be in it for the rest of her life. That is the full answer to what happened to Clara, not that she was punished, that she was given the specific correction that her specific failure required, and she took it. That took something real. One more thing. Dr. Mei Chen's note on the kitchen wall. I am going to be rich. He was 4 years old. He could not speak. He could not say the words. He wrote them. And then he spent 30 years being the most patient, most observant, most careful builder in every room he entered. And the note was right. He was rich. Not primarily in the way the note meant at 4 years old. In every way a person can be rich. In the notebooks, in the observations, in a business that employed hundreds of people, including a woman named Paulette who had watched a bad moment become the beginning of a good one. In a woman beside him who was still learning to see. In his mother's face at a kitchen table, reading a portfolio summary that said the $400 had become everything. In the silence that he had been handed at birth and that he had turned, piece by piece and year by year, into the thing that made him exactly who he was. The richest thing he had was the thing people had tried to use against him his whole life. His silence. He had built everything in it. If this story sat with you, hit the like button. Right now, one tap. Subscribe to Fair Folktales and ring the notification bell. Every single week we have a story like this one. A story about someone who was underestimated and what they built in that underestimation. Share this video with someone who has been judged by what they cannot do rather than what they can. Someone who has been told that their limitation is their identity. Let them hear this story. Comment below, what is the one thing people have underestimated about you? Tell us. We read every single comment. This is Fair Folktales. The greedy always fall. The overlooked always rise. And the ones who built in silence. They were always the loudest story in the room. We will see you in the next story.